Very suspicious solder blob on the board. That couldn't be a problem, could it? That's what's coming up next on LCARA Ham Radio. Hello, folks. This is Chris, KY4CKP. Well, we're working on the CBRs, the crossband repeater kits again today, and we're working on specifically kit number 3 out of 6, and then we have one number 7 as a spare backup. But kit number 3, we've had an issue with this one. Everything's pretty much done with all the kits, just this final testing and tuning. And with kit number 3, the issue that we have had is that it is properly transmitting in its crossband repeater function in one direction. It works correctly going from 2 meters to 70 centimeters, but it wasn't properly transmitting audio going from 70 centimeters to 2 meters. This has been a sort of a thorn in our side for a little while now. We've done quite a bit of testing already on this unit, and couldn't really seem to find any problems. So went to headquarters and worked with our president, Don AC4DM, and we were just going to try to hammer on this unit and just see if we can't figure out what's going on here. So we were going to really double, triple, probably even quadruple check a few things and just make sure if we can figure out what the issue is, whether we need a new radio at one of the positions or, just whatever. So we got it out and put it up here on the table, and we just started going through everything again. Because we have no idea where the problem is. We just know that there's a problem, and roughly what the problem is. Audio only transmitting in one direction. And what's sort of curious about this was that you'll see us do it a few times, and you've seen us do it in some of the other videos, we'll actually take the microphone and plug that into the units. And when you plug the microphone into either one of these radios, the 2 meter or the 70 centimeter version, they work correctly. The audio is fine when you're just using them as a, sort of a normal standalone radio. So sort of in general, the radios are working, they're fine. But it's something about the crossband repeat function that wasn't quite right. And so we broke out the test fixture again. You can see here where we can test our pigtails, we can test the crossover cable, and we just started testing everything again. So again, testing both radios, testing with the mic, testing the pigtails that go into the radios, onto the header, and testing the push to talk or the transmit, and just testing both directions. And you can see on the 70 centimeter there, we do have a microphone plugged straight into it because we were still doing some testing with the mic. And so we spent quite a bit of time going back and using a couple of handhelds, one programmed for 70 centimeters, one programmed for 2 meters, so that we could do the testing between the mobile units to just test the crossband function. And again, we were easily able to verify that, sure enough, it works correctly in one direction. Because what we were seeing is that the push to talk, we were opening the channel in both directions, right? We opened the channel in both directions. It's just that no audio was coming from the 70 centimeters through the 2 meters, but audio was working correctly from 2 meters to 70 centimeters. So again, using the two handhelds, we just started retesting everything. You can see we pulled the 70 centimeter radio out from the bracket there. And again, we were testing both the pigtails and how they were set up, the little crossover cable, push to talk, and all these functions. And, not assuming really that anything was working 100% correctly, right? Because obviously something is not working. And, it just takes time. And it can be a little frustrating, but this is probably the third time that I know of that we've worked on this unit. beyond just originally assembling it, I think, as far as testing and some things. Definitely second or third time. But it's just what it takes sometimes. You just have to keep looking at the problem, keep testing it, try not to make any assumptions. It's just sort of proper troubleshooting 101 kind of stuff, especially those of us that maybe work in fields like IT and just other areas. You just have to try not to make any assumptions, recheck, triple check everything. And so we were doing that and finding the very same symptoms we'd always found, which is individually the radio seemed to work fine. In crossband, it works one direction, not the other. And so once we had spent an hour and a half, probably, maybe a little bit more going through, again, the two pigtails. Each radio has a pigtail that goes to a header on the internal motherboard, and the little 9-pin serial sort of connector crossover cable. Again, everything seems fine. Everything's working as expected except for audio. Again, the push-to-talk. The push-to-talk works both directions. It's just no audio got transmitted. But, of course, direct with a microphone it works, just, as if it's a standalone radio. So, very confusing. And it's definitely been, a bit aggravating. But we were going to take at least one more look at this. And just try to make sure, if nothing else, try to make sure we've narrowed down to what is the problem. If it's the 70 centimeter radio, okay, annoying, but okay, we'll pull that out and we'll get another one, right? We're just trying to verify the issue before we either spend more money or have to build a new cable or just, whatever it's going to be. And so, again, you can see here, we even got a third radio, and we're doing some testing. Another 70 centimeter radio and put a pigtail on it and did some testing, and again, everything's working right. So it definitely started looking like it is something about the 70 centimeter radio. The pigtails seem fine, the crossover seems fine. Again, standalone wise, the radio that we were using works well. It's just the CBR, the crossband. So again, we took the cover off. Again, I don't know how many times these covers have been off some of these radios, because you have to solder the pad across and you have to, mount the pigtail and different things. And so we opened it up again and we took a look. Well, when we took a look at this one, look at that right in the center there. I don't know if you noticed it, but there was just a giant blob. Here it comes. It's the blob that ate Detroit. That blob, that's two pads you're supposed to solder together to open up the audio transmit, the modulation for the crossband repeat function. And folks, I'm not much of a solder, but I know that's not a good looking solder joint there. I don't know who did that one, if it was me. Several of us have worked on these radios, but that's just a poor, kind of a cold solder joint. And so AC4DM and I saw that, and it sort of, got our attention finally. We're like, hey, that's terrible looking. We need to, look at that and redo that. And when you can see there with the solder wick, when he pulled the main blob off of there, it was only touching one pad. It wasn't even touching the other pad. And so guess what? The modulation for audio, for it to transmit audio, was not going to be opened up, was not going to work. So we took that old blob off of there. We put some nice fresh solder on that, made sure we got across both the pads. And you'll never believe this, folks, but once we did that, the unit worked perfectly. Nothing wrong with the unit. You'll see here in a moment. I'll even play some audio when we did the final testing. But that was the problem. And to just sort of casually look at this unit, there was a solder blob there, right? And it just hadn't caught any of our attention strongly enough that until today, that we were like, that just does not look good. That's not a good solder joint. It obviously was a cold solder joint and just blobbed up on one pad. But once we were just trying to, what in the world can be wrong with this thing, then it did sort of stick out to us. And we're like, yeah, we got to redo that. That can't be good. And sure enough, it wasn't. So that was the problem. And so again, folks, when you're having issues, put your tools down, sleep on it, look at it tomorrow. With a fresh set of eyes, you've rested, you haven't thought about it for a while, maybe even 2 or 3 times, and sometimes you can figure things out. So let's play a little audio when we did our final testing after we fixed that joint, and then we'll bring you folks right back.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, so that's working.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. Success. Got it, boy.
All right, folks, that's going to wrap this one up. We've now got all 6 of our primary units working. We're going to be working to complete our spare unit number 7 and moving on into antennas and things like that. So this is Chris, KY4CKP for Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. We'll see you folks in the next video.